Welcome to the Animation Station Podcast, your home for discussions and debates about all things animation. Each week, we'll rank, review, and revel in animated shows from yesterday and today, and from around the world. So grab your Acme slingshot, set your mobile suit to autopilot, and put on your mouse ears. The Animation Station Podcast begins now.
All right, everybody, welcome to a special episode of the Animation Station Podcast. My name is Josh.
I'm Gavin.
And Corey.
And today we have a very special guest. We have an extremely talented actor and voice actor, Mr. Phil LaMarr. How you doing, Phil?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Pretty good.
We're great.
Good.
Now, you guys may know
Excellent.
some of Phil's work. He's been in some live-action stuff, like my favorite roles, probably the UPS guy on MADtv.
Yeah,
And then he was
hilarious.
Marvin in Pulp Fiction.
Oh, yeah.
So sorry about what happened in the back of that car.
Nah, I got better. I got better.
And then he's also voiced like personally some of my favorite characters. He was Hermes Conrad in Futurama.
Mm-hmm.
He's Ollie Williams in Family Guy. John Stewart in Justice League, and of course Samurai Jack in the aptly named Samurai Jack.
That would be weird if it was called something else.
Exactly, you're
Right.
Samurai Jack, and it's Ninja One Fu. No, wow, that's words that just don't work.
Ninja One Fu.
Ninja One Fu.
I think we could sell that.
Yeah,
I
that's,
want to
that's a legitimate title right there.
Ninja One Fu. Yes.
I don't even think we need a
Absolutely.
premise. We just have that title.
Just go in
Exactly.
Ninja One Fu.
Perfect.
Just make
So,
some t-shirts. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
that's awesome. So, yeah, your film and TV career goes back, 30 years, and you've done a little bit of everything, all the way from animation to live action to improv comedy to video games, even.
Yeah.
So, our show is mostly about animation, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you get into animation and voice acting?
Well, it's funny because, my very first job, I grew up here in LA, and just randomly wound up in high school getting a job working on a cartoon, the Mr. T cartoon. It was back in the 80s. And
So cool.
It was a company called Ruby Spears, which was like the poor man's Hanna-Barbera. And, I spent 3 summers doing voices for that show. And, when I was young and starting out, people say, how did you get into voice acting? It's like, that wasn't a thing. Like,
Right.
voice acting in and of itself, was not an industry or a job. It was what Mel Blanc did.
Mm-hmm.
So that the same way that sort of like, nobody goes to Bill Gates and is like, how did you get into being the head of Microsoft? Like, there were so few people doing that thing. Now I guess that's sort of it. It's like, how do you get to be an internet billionaire? Now it's a thing. When he started out, it wasn't a thing.
Right.
It's like, well, Gates,
Right.
Zuckerberg. There's a bunch of guys who are internet billionaires. Same thing with voiceover. Back then, it was a thing that a handful of people did. Most of them you didn't know their names, and most of them to this day we still don't know what they look like. Like Dawes Butler, who was the king of those Hanna-Barbera shows. Could you pick his picture out of a lineup? I couldn't.
Nope, I couldn't.
Right. We do know Mel Blanc because he is, the god.
Mm-hmm.
He is the Moses who brought the voice tablets down from on high. But I had that job, and then I went away to college, and then afterwards came back home to LA to pursue acting, and the traditional route was on camera, and that's what I did. And it wasn't until we started doing claymation pieces on MADtv that it really occurred to me maybe I should look back into animation. And I got lucky. I hooked up with a young agent who was starting his career at the same time he was starting mine, and I got some good opportunities. And this was the late 90s, early 2000s. And I don't think that there was any sort of industry shift at that time, because there was one in the early 90s where cable exploded in terms of animation. And you went from enough animation for, Don Messick, Dawes Butler, and Mel Blanc to do all of, before they did everything.
Right.
Because there were only so many shows. Maybe a couple of the Filmation shows, which I think were all done by the same guy. But then cable hit, and there was a much bigger need. There were a lot more cartoons, Nickelodeon and all of that stuff. And that's when you had Rob Paulson and Maurice and Jeff Bennett and Billy West, and those guys all sort of came into the VO world, all around the same time. And we those of us in VO sort of look at it like, there are classes, because it seems that way. There is a group that comes in at around the same time.
Oh, right.
Like I think in my class was like Kevin Michael Richardson, me, who else? Well, Jason Marsden, Tara Strong, Great Lyle. Was Tom? No, Tom Kenny was already there. Yeah. So it's weird because there are people that you start seeing at all of the same jobs, and then you sort of keep seeing. And then in a few more years, you start seeing other people, like there's this class of Eric Bowes, Kari Walgren, Kari Payton, those group of, just extraordinary talents. And it's really interesting to see it now from a little perspective, like, oh, there is a voiceover industry, and there is, a group of performers at each, sort of time level. But when it's all said and done, the great thing about it is everybody sort of sticks around. It's a job that you can do for a long time. So I get to work with, Bowser, and I also get to work with, Frank Welker, because everybody's all doing it at the same time.
Right. That's incredible. So, we know that you went to school for acting and came out, and like you said, you kind of went for the on-screen stuff first, and you've had a really mixed career of, on-screen and, voice acting.
Right.
Do you have a preference? Do you prefer to be on screen or on stage and being seen, or do you like kind of some of the freedom that comes with voice acting?
Well, actually, what's funny is the medium is not really the difference as much as the quality.
Oh, okay.
There's more difference between Samurai Jack and, I don't know, like Pound Puppies than there is between Samurai Jack and Pulp Fiction. Like the experience of working with a really amazing creator with a vision, who is collaborative and open, but also just taking things creatively to, an amazing level. That's the same, whether you're on stage, on mic, or on camera, And the bad things, they're all bad in different ways, but they're all doing a really crappy movie, a really crappy cartoon, it's all just work, both working with, but when something is great, a great script, talented creators, then it's joy, regardless of where you're doing it.
All right. Now, so Phil, since you've done a lot of acting for like your animated characters, like for your TV series, and then with your video game characters, do you find it more difficult to do the video game characters as opposed to the series characters? Because I mean, we've had other voice actors on, and they've said that it's a little bit more difficult doing a lot of the efforts and everything, like your grunts and your screams and everything that you have on your video game side, as opposed to getting your script and reading it for, like, say, Ollie Williams.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, at least from where I'm coming from, much harder to do video game stuff for a couple of reasons. One, the most obvious being the fact that most video games have fighting, death, and violence, and you've got to voice that. The other main thing is the sheer volume of it. Not volume in sound, but volume in amount. A cartoon is half an hour. A video game is minimum 5 hours of cutscenes plus gameplay. So it can be, so much material that you have to provide vocalizations for. Either, in-game lines that just happen when someone, encounters your character, or scenes, that they've written that you have to act the whole thing out, or, again, fighting and violence. Generally a voiceover workday is 4 hours. With a cartoon, there's usually, 4 to 8 of us together doing a half an hour's worth of material in 4 hours. For a video game, it's just you, in a booth, alone, talking, screaming, and dying for 4 hours straight. So just the amount of work is much greater. And as someone who plays games, it's a little easier, because at least I get it. I understand if there's a line saying, and make sure when you go inside, I understand why I'm saying that kind of exposition. Like if you don't play a game, it's like, hit X, like, who's X? It's like, no, it's the button. Never mind. But you know what I'm saying? Because like there are a lot of things that the game requires that all of us who play games sort of get. But if you don't play games and you're used to playing scenes of people interacting with each other, it gets really weird. It's like, why would I ever say that to another person? Like, because you got to tell them how to activate the nuclear bomb. That's why, Otherwise, they can't get to the next level. So
I never
in
thought
that
of it
sense,
that way. That's interesting.
yeah.
So
I mean, and all all those in-game lines,
Go ahead.
where when your character bumps into the orc, you have, as an actor, they just give you hundreds of those in a row. And, you have to make them real. There's no scene to go with it. Hey, what are you doing here? You have to say, hey, what are you doing here in 8 different ways, and try to make it, come alive in some way. As game players, we all know the thing you hate the most is hearing the same line every time you go down that hallway in the same way. So it's like, as an actor, and as a game player, I don't want to hear it. So as an actor, I don't want to do it. So you just always want to give, a bunch of different takes on something. But again, every scene, you got to do it 5 different ways and try to make them all believable. So that's part of what makes it much harder.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. That's really cool.
You said that you play games a lot, and that you've obviously voiced a lot of video games. At the risk of this sounding very strange, have you ever played yourself and just thought, oh, this didn't work, or just find it hilarious? That
you mean played as a character that I voiced?
Yes.
Or was Phil LaMarr ever a character in a game? Like, not that I'm aware of. But no, because I played the Injustice game a lot because I'm a big comic book head.
Nice.
But and Aquaman has some of the cheapest moves ever. So of course I'm going to play that.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I generally, it seems to me that I don't generally act the part of player characters. I'm usually someone you encounter, with the exception of Injustice and Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was watching your one of Reel's voice reels of all the video game characters you've played, and yeah, it seems like it's mostly encounters with storyline characters that you've played. Do you have a favorite video game that you worked on?
Well, I was a big fan of the Metal Gear series before I got on it.
Nice.
And yeah, continued to be after, just because it's so well done.
Yeah.
But hard to play. Like I don't think I still haven't finished Metal Gear 4.
So what about your television or film animated characters? Is there one that you specifically feel connected to or relate to personally?
Well, I'd say, Static Shock was definitely one that I related to.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'd say nowadays there's an animated project that I'm actually putting together myself with my friends Matt King and Terrell Hunt.
Ooh.
And we're writing and producing it, and I'm going to be voicing a character in it. So that's great because for me, it's the first time I've done what I'd been doing on stage and on camera. We were talking about the UPS guy. It's a character I created. It's a character that I'm more than a third of.
Nice.
And on this new show, Goblins, I feel like I'm finally more than a third of it. Because it's based on a webcomic called Goblins that my friend Terrell's been doing for about more than 10 years now. And it's a D&D sort of world, but it's what if the goblins were the adventuring party instead of just the low-level monsters getting their butts kicked. And it's really fun. It's especially it's fun if you're a D&D person because there's a lot of inside stuff, but it's also really fun otherwise because he's taken that premise and sort of like blown it up in such a great way. And now we're adapting it into an animated series. And that has been so much fun. Like getting on the other side of animation, it's like, because normally I'm just, on one little piece of the pipeline, like somebody hands me a script, I stick my words on it, put it back on the pipeline, and it shoots it down. But now, we're building the pipes. So that part has been a lot of fun. And and I'm really excited because I'm going to be working with some of my other compatriots from previous shows. We're actually a couple of weeks away from starting to announce some stuff.
Sweet.
Awesome.
And there's some really cool, amazing people that are going to be attached to it.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's actually incredibly exciting to us. We all three play D&D.
Yeah, a bunch of D&D nerds. Yeah, well, that sounds amazing.
Oh, no way.
So
Yeah.
Oh, well, if you've never seen Goblins, check it out, goblinscomic.org, or you can just wait for our big announcement on Goblins Animated.
Yeah,
I'll
we will
definitely
keep
look
an
it
eye
up.
out.
So was it also kind of fun being able to play a goblin on Matt Mercer's one shot, where you all played goblins?
Right. I know, which was really ironic, because we had this in the works when Matt called me about that. I'm like, really?
That's awesome.
And yeah, it was so much fun. It was so much fun. Yeah, I might have to. Yeah, wonder if I can get Ashley back.
Good.
That's amazing.
So is now the next question is Brown Tooth that you played going to be in your new show?
Well, no, because as you'll see if you go to the website, Terrell has built this amazing world, and there are all these great characters already existing. maybe if we go full on Game of Thrones, by season 8, we'll have, gone past what he's written. Then we'll roll the one-shot goblins into the world as a rival adventuring party.
That's amazing. Well, we'll definitely be.
That would be the dream.
We'll definitely be posting your announcement on all of our social media spots as well to try and get the word out once you guys make that announcement. That's so cool. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yes, always appreciate a good signal boost.
Exactly.
So, other than Goblins, anything else that you want to promote? Like anything upcoming that you can talk about?
Yes. What else is going on? I've got a new show on Adult Swim, created by Tyler, the Creator, the rapper. It's a show called The Jellies, which is so out there. Like, I think it's going to make Rick and Morty seem,
That's a tall order, man.
Right? And also on camera, been working on this new show called Get Shorty.
Oh, yeah.
Based on the Elmore Leonard book with Ray Romano and Chris O'Dowd, which is so good. It's so dark and so funny.
That's going to be awesome.
So, yes. If you can find epics on your on your cable dial,
nice.
It's definitely worth taking a look.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're gonna end our questions on one last thing. We just want to ask if you have any advice for any of our listeners that are interested in acting or voice acting, and like how to, if they have that dream, what is your advice to young actors at this point?
My advice these days is mostly that it's a skill, it's a craft, it's something you have to learn. It's not just about doing your makeup and posting every Wednesday. Especially with voice acting, I think a lot of people start thinking about getting into it because they think, oh, that's easy. I already talk all day. Why not get paid for it? But there's more to it than that. I mean, even though it's, we call it voice acting, truly the acting comes first. And I would encourage anybody to, take classes, scene study, do local plays, or whatever you need to do to practice those skills, work those muscles, and because even though people say, well, voiceover is easier because nobody's looking at me, it's like they are. They're looking at you and they're paying you and they're staring at you through the glass while you're standing on a mic, and they expect you to deliver the same way you'd have to in front of a camera. Just quicker and, with, and you're more replaceable. So it's like,
oh man.
So in some ways there's even more pressure, because on camera, once you've done a show, they kind of are stuck with you, and with voiceover, they tried to replace the people who do The Simpsons. We're all interchangeable cogs to them. So your best job security is being great, and that takes work. So that's my advice. Work hard, and go to D. Bradley Baker's website, iwanttobeavoiceactor.com, which is actually a great little resource for anybody looking to pursue a creative career, whether it's acting, voice acting, or any number of things, because it has a lot of resources and questions to ask yourself. Because people say, oh, the rejection is the hard thing. It's like, no, the hard thing is the not knowing and the not having control of your destiny.
Nice.
You can't hire yourself to act unless you're writing and producing your own animated series.
Produce your own animated series, and then you don't even have to audition.
Right.
Exactly. Right. But you still need to work and practice, because if you hire yourself and you suck, then you're going to have to fire yourself.
That would be hard. Like, you sit in front of a mirror, it's like, now, Josh, you're not good enough. Where'd you go? They're like, but why? Well, I think you know why.
Amazing.
Or worse, Josh, you don't even tell yourself. You just have someone else record your lines.
Like,
what?
That's
That would be
amazing.
great.
That would be. Oh, I just ghosted myself.
I love it.
Phil, that was awesome. Thanks so much for coming on.
Cool. No, thank you guys for having me and bearing
It's
through
part of
the
the job,
technical
man. It's
issues.
It
part of the
happens
job.
all the time. Now, where can all of our listeners find you out on social media?
I'm on Twitter a lot at Phil LaMarr, all one word, 2 L's in the middle, 2 R's on the end. I also have my Facebook page, which is Phil LaMarr 1, and at Goblins Animated on Facebook and
That's
Instagram.
the exciting part. We're gonna check that out immediately after we push
Absolutely.
stop today.
Yeah, and we'll put all of those links in the description of the podcast. Now, Gavin, where can everybody find you?
I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Gavin Otteson Art, on the web at GavinOttesonArt.com.
I am on Instagram and Twitter at Majestic Corey.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Josh L. Kane. You can find the podcast on Instagram at Animation Station Podcast.
On Twitter at Animate Podcast.
On Facebook at Animation Station Podcast. You can also find all of our episodes on iTunes.
And Stitcher.
And you can also find us on our website, animationstationpodcast.com. You can click on the podcast tab and listen to all of our episodes there. Again, Phil, thanks so much for coming on.
All right,
so
Phil.
for the
Thank you guys for
Animation
having me.
Station,
Take care.
I'm Josh.
I'm Gavin.
I'm Corey.
Thank you for listening to the Animation Station Podcast. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Animation Station Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Animate Podcast. Subscribe to us on iTunes and join the conversation at SecretSuperheroClub.com, where you can connect with our podcast friends, Cloud City Cast, Getting Into Comics, and Shaun of the Gathering.